So, dedicate this presentation to His Divine Grace Abhayacharanara Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And we can start with Guru Pranam and also Mangalacharan. So, Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajadam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Jayatam Surato Pangur Mama Manda Matirgati Vatsarvasva Padambojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadru Madaha Srimad Ratnagara Simhasanasto Srimad Radha Shri Lagovinda Devo Prestali Bihi Sevyamano Smarami Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Deva Prastali Bihi Sevyamano Swarami Sriman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivata Statastitaha Karshan Veno Swanair Gopir Gopinata Shri Estunaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaivam Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudire Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavatir Nashtiki. By regular attendance in class on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam shukamukadam mritadravya samyutam vibhata bhagavatam rasamalayam muhuraho rasika bhuvi bhavakaha Krishnaya vasudevaya devaki nandanaya cha nandagopa kumaraya govindaya namo namaha. Let me therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lord, who has become the son of Vasudeva, the pleasure of Devaki, the boy of Nanda, and the other cowherd men of Vrindavan, and the enlivener of the cows and the senses. Nama Pankajanabhaya, Nama Pankajamaline, Nama Pankajanetraya, Namaste Pankajangre. Nama Om Vishnupadaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhakti Vekta Vinasha Narasimhaiti Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayatim Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Mishwaram Om Tat Sat. So Hare Krishna everyone, welcome back to our Srimad Bhagavatam. So we are doing chapter 2 and hopefully we will finish chapter 2 today. So the title is again Divinity and Divine Service. So to bring us back into focus, I'll just do a quick recap. So we started by, remember chapter 1, 6 questions were asked by the sages in the Naimisaranya forest headed by Saunaka Rishi, and Saunaka Rishi put these questions to Suta Goswami. So Suta Goswami, he now in chapter 2, he begins by first of all offering his obeisances and pranams to Srimad Bhagavatam and his guru Vyasadev, Sukadev Goswami, and thereby he answers one of the questions raised by the sages. The question was, what is the essence of all Vedic literature? And the essence of all Vedic literature is in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and he specifically mentions the word Shruti Saram, the essence, Saram of all the Shrutis is Srimad Bhagavatam. So that is one answer to one of the questions. And then after that, he straight away, but later on in later chapters, here in chapter 2 and chapter 3, he is giving short answers. But later on, these answers will be elaborated further. We will hear the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam from chapter 4 onwards. And but then he continues to answer the first question. The sages asked, what is all good for all the people in this world now that Kali Yuga is coming? Shreya Janaha. So the answer to that is, very nicely he puts, the ultimate goal of all dharma is the Param Satyam, the ultimate truth, which is what? Which is Bhaktir Aduksaje, which is devotional service to Krishna. Krishna is Aduksaje. It's not Ashok Saje, it's Adok Saje, D. Aduk Saje. That means he who is beyond the material senses, who is beyond matter. Bhakti Aduk Saje. And this Param Satyam can be understood in 3 levels. So we've talked about that, the Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So that was mentioned. And how to attain, the best way to attain this Param Satyam, the highest realization of this Param Satyam, which is Bhagavan, is through none other than Bhakti. So that is a lot of nice verses bringing you evidence on that. So this is basically Sambandha Gyan, knowledge of our relationship about us and the Supreme Truth, and how the Supreme Truth is understood, and the means for attaining the Supreme Truth in theory. So all this is the knowledge of relationships. So we worshipped just now, we prayed, we offered the prayers to Madan Mohan, the deity who is presiding over Sambandha Jnana. So therefore, it begins with this spiritual knowledge. And then we heard how from verses 16 to 21, Suta Goswami elaborates further the means, the method of achieving this. So bhakti is mentioned. So what is this bhakti? So, and how does it work? So therefore, this was described briefly, and this is known as Abhideya Jnana. So Abhideya Jnana is the knowledge of the process. So we heard about our connection, our relationship in Sambandha Gyan. And briefly now we also hear about the process, the connecting process, how to connect to the Supreme. So, and here he talks about breaking the knot in the heart, piercing the knot in the heart. We heard about Hridaya Granthi, the knot. There's a knot in our heart. What is this knot? This knot is the false ego, the ahamkara, which is tying the soul to this material plane. So therefore, and that's the cause of us taking birth after birth after birth. So by following the process of bhakti, it pierces the Hridaya Granthi, it loosens it and pierces it and cuts away all doubts and misgivings, right? And it destroys karma, fruitive activities, the cycle of birth and death, it destroys it. And it went on to talk about the stages of this bhakti. So how in the beginning, by hearing, by serving the devotees, we get agyata sukriti. by serving the pure devotees, in some way, we get Agyata Sukriti, and therefore we get that faith. That faith is planted in our heart simply by us serving the instructions or the person of the pure devotee in some way. And then once the faith is developed in the heart, right, we heard about how it develops from, we take association of saintly persons, and then we begin the bhajana kriya, the process of watering the faith, the seed in the heart, the 9 processes of bhakti, which is Shravanam, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Pujanam, and all that. Very briefly. And then it talked about how simply by doing this bhakti, our hearts become purified. The modes of nature, which are the 3 modes of nature, which is conditioning us and keeping us in illusion and keeping us tied with this ahamkara. So we heard how by simply following bhakti, by the process of hearing and chanting, right, and remembering, what happens slowly, gradually, actually immediately, but we have to come to the stage of pure chanting, but gradually it brings us away from the lower modes, from the mode of ignorance. The mode of ignorance falls away, and then the mode of passion also falls away, and then we come to be situated firmly in the mode of goodness. So that is Nishtha platform, right? So the Anartha Nivritti goes on, then we come to Nishtha, then they develop Ruchi, taste, then they become very fixed and attached, and then we heard how devotional service goes to the next level. Because devotional service, there are 2 levels. Levels where we perform bhakti within the 3 modes, that's the beginning stage, and we perform bhakti beyond the 3 modes, that means liberated stage. So bhakti within the 3 modes and bhakti in the liberated platform, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma, in that level. So that's where Bhava comes, right? Ashak Bhava begins, and then the purpose of this entire thing is for us to achieve Prema. Prema means unalloyed, pure love, fully bloomed, pure love of God. This is the goal of life. And we will hear more about this in today's topics as well. So therefore, the Abhideya is the process of how we can attain to the goal. And what's that goal? Prema. And that's the Prayojan. Prayojan is the goal. What is the objective of what we are doing? So the knowledge about the goal of all this process. So we worship Gopinath. Gopinath is the deity who is presiding over Prayojan, right? So we offered our prayers to that to that deity as well. And then we enter. So basically, what we have covered just now, all of this is talking about divine service. It's basically, chapter 2 talking about divinity and divine service. So we address divine service. Now, towards the end part of this chapter, verses 22 all onwards to 34, we will now focus on the divinity. So we started last session 2 weeks ago. We began by talking about how any kind of devotional service must, if we are interested in transcendence, to go beyond the cycle of birth and death, if you are interested in the supreme truth, absolute truth, Param Satyam, then what happens? We need to worship beyond the 3 modes. So who is beyond the 3 modes, right? Which deity is beyond the 3 modes, the master of the 3 modes? So we heard how, we heard about the differences between Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and Lord Vishnu. So for the purpose of material creation, Lord Vishnu, he expands, Lord Krishna, he expands himself as Vishnu, and from Vishnu, for the purpose of creation, Brahma comes as the chief engineer of the universe, right? So that is basically the mode of passion, because to create, you need passion. And then from passion comes anger, right? Ignorance. So the anger of Lord Brahma, from Brahma's forehead, Lord Shiva came. So we heard about this previously, about the 3 modes. But though Lord Vishnu is presiding over the mode of goodness, he is transcendental. He's beyond this. So we'll hear a bit more about that as well. So we stopped over here. So basically, he's talking about divinity. And today we will continue this topic, and we will hear more about the Parayojan, which is the goal. We will hear more about the nature of the Supreme Person, Param Bhagavan, how he is Loka Bhavana, right? We will hear more about that. Loka Bhavana means maintainer and protector of this entire universe. And by doing this, he will also, Sutta Goswami will answer another question raised by the sages. We will hear about that. And briefly, we will see how he also gives a preview to the other questions, questions 4 and question 5. So without further ado, let's continue with this. So it's now 8:20 or 8:18. Okay. So Sutta Goswami continues. Those who are serious about liberation are certainly anasuyavaha. Very important point. So what is anasuyavaha? Anasuya means those, asuya means envious. Anasuya means free from envy. So because they understand everybody is going through their particular karma. If they are achieving something, it's because it's foreordained by their karma. So to envy someone is actually considered one of the greatest himsa. Himsa means to cause harm. We practice ahimsa. So, and the purpose of not eating meat, abstaining from eating meat and all that, is to protect the pillar of religion called mercy, which is basically to protect, which is to uphold ahimsa. So this ahimsa, one of the main things which cause himsa is envy, right? So those who are serious about liberation, we need to abandon this concept of envy. How to do that? By knowledge. We understand further and further about everybody's situation, how everything is going on due to one's past activities, right? And at the same time, we don't become, because when we talk about envy, envy is focused on material gains. So one who is focused on liberation, he's not interested in material gains. So therefore, anasuya. And not only they are non-envious, they respect all, right? So therefore, amanina manadena, right? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, to give respect to everyone. And Prabhupada says, highly qualified brahmanas situated in the mode of goodness have no grudges against the mode of worship of others. So here, this topic is talking about worship. Who should we worship if we want to attain liberation, right? So Sutta Goswami begins by this. Very importantly, to tell that the devotees of those who are transcendentalists, they are serious in attaining liberation. Number one, they are not envious. Number two, they respect all. So Prabhupada here is saying that if we are in the mode of goodness, we don't hold grudges against other people's mode of worship. So here Prabhupada says, they have all respect for other demigods or other devatas, even though they may look ghastly, like Kala Bhairava or Mahakali. Now, in Hinduism, we see this, right? We see there are different modes of worship. Even if you take Parvati, for example, Parvati, in the mode of goodness, she's Parvati, very nice. But then in the mode of passion, she represents Durga. She sits on a lion, she carries all kinds of weapons, and then she kills demons. But still, this is her representation. And then in a mode of ignorance, she manifests herself as Mahakali, completely naked, not wearing any clothes, covered with skulls, very dark, shadowy, fearsome look, hair all loose and scattered everywhere, sharp teeth, tongue is drinking blood, a kind of ghastly appearance. So, but those who understand the feature, if we can understand that, we don't condemn such people. We understand that they are in that particular mode. People are situated in different modes, mode of ignorance, mode of passion, mode of goodness, and there are a lot of mixture. Passion, passion, ignorance, 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 passion, goodness, passion, ignorance. So there's a lot of different permutations and combinations with these three modes. So therefore, we have the devotees have respect for all devatas, even though they may look ghastly like Kala Bhairava. Kala Bhairava is an expansion of Lord Shiva in the mode of ignorance, very fearsome looking. And Prabhupada continues, they know very well that these horrible features of the Supreme Lord are all different servitors of the Lord under different conditions. Okay, so even in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna showed the universal form. In the beginning, it was all very nice. Then later, he displayed his Kala Rupa, the form of time, eternal time. And it was very scary. Arjuna was fearful. Then he said, please don't show me this form. So therefore, if one who understands the various features of the Supreme Lord, they can understand that various devatas are simply servitors of the Lord under different conditions, meant for the upliftment of people in different modes. Right? So we understand this and we don't condemn, and we have respect for everything. Yet, at the same time, having respect does not mean that we also worship them as the Supreme. So that is important distinction we need to know. So therefore, Bhagavatam, it continues. Yet they reject the Gora Rupam of the Bhuta Patin. So Gora Rupa means the fearsome, scary looking images of the Bhuta Patin. Bhuta means the living entities, and Patin comes from the word Pati, which is the Lord of the living entities. Who are the lords of the living entities? The Devatas, because they control various aspects of our life. They control the rain, they control our fortune, they control our karma. So therefore they are called Bhuta Patin. So how to understand this? We have to understand, right? So this is one of the issues sometimes people raise. Oh, Hare Krishnas, they don't worship devatas. Yes, we actually worship devatas in relation to Krishna. So we understand that devatas are parts and parcel of the Supreme Lord, but they are not supreme. So to understand this properly, we can understand that Krishna, right? He's the Supreme Personality, the Absolute Truth, together with his Shakti, right? So we have Krishna with his Shakti Tattva, and his expansions are the Vishnu Tattvas. So Vishnu Tattvas are the expansions of the Lord. So the Lord has many types of expansions, but we can categorize them into two. One is the Vishnu Tattva expansion, and the other is the Jiva Tattva expansion. Now, Vishnu Tattva is directly the Supreme Lord, expanding in his full potency, right? Just like you take a candle and you light another candle with the same candle. So you get two candles, and two candles are also burning the same brightness, right? So, and then you can also light other candles. So many candles. So in this way, we can understand Vishnu Tattva expansion of Krishna, but the original candle is Krishna. So this we can understand. But Jiva Tattva, this is not a candle. This is a spark of the fire of one of the candles. So from one of the candles, it emits a spark. So that spark, we can say that the spark came, Hare Krishna Mataji, I'll just mute you. Okay. We can say that the spark came from the fire, but the spark is not the same candle, right? So therefore, we are part and parcel, amsa, of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, we are particle coming from him, but we are not in the same category. And when we say Jiva, Jiva also includes the Devatas. The Devatas are also Jiva. We can also become Devatas, whether in this universe or in another universe. If we perform a lot of pious activities, then in our next life, we can become one of the Devatas. It's a position. So the position of Indra, the position of various, Kartikeya, all these, they're all positions. And in this universe, in different universes, these positions are all there. And for example, if you want to become Indra, you just have to perform 108 Ashwamedha sacrifices. It's a very difficult sacrifice, but one has to perform that. Then one can become Indra. So Prabhupada says, one should never classify the Vishnu Tattvas or the plenary portions of Narayana, the personality of Godhead, in the same categories with the parts and parcels. So we should never consider the Vishnu Tattva to be the same level as the Jiva Tattva. And that includes, the Jiva Tattva includes the Devatas. So therefore, because the Devatas are also part of this, we don't give them the same consideration as the Vishnu Tattvas. Vishnu Tattva is directly Krishna, God. Whereas Jiva Tattva is not God, even though they may be very powerful. Even up to Brahma, you can be Jiva Tattva, even one of the most powerful, in fact, the most powerful Jiva is Brahma. So therefore, Lord Shiva is separate. Lord Shiva is another expansion of Vishnu Tattva. We won't talk about that today. So this is level 1 understanding. As we go further in Srimad Bhagavatam, we will further develop this. This is actually a very complex understanding. This concept of Krishna and his expansions is quite complex. And in chapter 3, we will talk about it in more detail. And later on, we will develop this further and further. But this is the first basic understanding, Vishnu Tattva and Jiva Tattva. So if anyone does so, if anyone equates the Supreme Lord with Jiva, if they say Lord Vishnu and Lord Brahma are the same, then what happens? That person becomes an offender, known by the name Pasandi, because he doesn't know the Tattva correctly. So this is what Sutta Goswami is saying in the Bhagavatam, right? Yet they reject the Gora Rupam of the Bhuta Patin, right? The demigods can award the worshippers some temporary benefit only. So this is the reason we don't accept them as the supreme. So Srila Prabhupada says, because even Brahma, up to the level of Brahma, he cannot give liberation. Otherwise, Hiranyakashipu would have been deathless, isn't it? He prayed, he did lots of austerities such as nobody in this universe has ever seen before. And in the end, when Lord Brahma came, he said, let me become immortal. But Brahma said, no, I can't give you that. I can't let you become deathless, because even I am not immortal. One day I will die. So therefore, no one can give liberation except Vishnu Tattva. It is for this reason only that candidates for liberation deliberately reject the worship of demigods. Now, we have to understand this. Reject the worship of demigods does not mean that we disrespect them, that we don't want to follow, give them due respect. No, that's not what it means. It means that we don't go out of our way to perform worship for the devatas. If it happens to be, okay, if it's part of the family and then the family is going, okay, we go, right? Or if there is some kind of a festival, generally we don't go out of our way to worship, to observe these festivals of the devatas, because our goal is not for what the devatas can grant us. Our goal goes beyond the devatas. Our goal is to attain not only liberation, it is to attain Krishna Prema. So we will talk about that in this topic after this. What is that ultimate goal, right? So therefore, deliberately reject the worship of the demigods, although they have no disrespect for any one of them. So actually, we give them the greatest respect. We go to, if we at all happen to come by the Deva temple, we definitely take obeisances of them, but we do not pray to them as supreme. Instead, we offer prayers in relationship to Krishna. Or we can pray like, please bless us so that we can develop our spiritual life further in our bhakti, in our devotional service to Krishna, or kindly remove obstacles for my worship towards Krishna. So this kind of prayer, so it's in relation to Krishna, because only Vishnu is Muktipara. So, and we reject those who are interested in liberation, they reject the Ghora Rupam of the Bhutapatin and worship only the all blissful forms of Narayana and his plenary portions. Because Narayana alone is beyond the three modes. So it's not for anything else also. It's to understand that if we want to go beyond the three modes, we need to worship that particular deity which is outside the three modes, and that is Lord Krishna or Narayana. So those who are in Rajas and Tamas worship those in the same category. So these are normal people, people who are not interested in liberation, right? They are interested in other things, right? So they worship the Pitras, those who are in the mode of good ignorance. They generally worship those who are dead, people who have died. So when they die, people who die, the forefathers and the ancestors and all that, they go to Pitra Loka. So so sometimes this is you can see this in amongst in every community. You can find this in Hinduism, you can find it in the Chinese community also, Hungry Ghost Festival and all that. Even in Mexico, the Day of the Dead, where they actually offer so many things for their forefathers. You'll find this in Europe also. So everywhere, this is all coming from the Vedic culture. And then those in the mode of passion, this is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, right? They worship other living beings, right? So this is worshipping those in power, worshipping politicians. How do they worship politicians? They don't do arati for them, but then it's the type of respect and the type of reception they give, the devotion which they give to pop stars, to politicians, to movie stars. So these kind of things, or even their boss in work, simply because they want to get a promotion or whatever. So that is called worship in the mode of passion. And we have, namely, the Pitars, other living beings, and the other living beings can also mean the Devatas. So, and the Prajesa Adin. The Prajesa Adin means the Devatas who are in charge of the cosmic activity. These are powerful Devatas. Devatas who are in charge of various things within the universe. Like, we have the 9 Navagrahas, right? And then we have Indra, who controls the rain. And then we have Durga, the one who controls the material nature. So therefore, people generally, they worship these entities. Why? Because they are urged by a desire to be materially benefited. What kind of material benediction? They want Shriya. Shriya means fortune, or it could also mean women, or sexual relationship, or it could mean prestige. So this kind of urges. Or they want Aishwarya. Aishwarya, I think everybody knows. It means wealth, right? And power. It also means power and wealth. And Praja. Praja means good progeny, ancestry, good family, good children, good continuation of one's lineage. So these are one of the main reasons why people in this material world who are within the three modes, who generally think that there's nothing further than this. This is the goal of life, artha, kama, right? They don't understand that there's something beyond. So therefore, Prabhupada says, to accept more material enjoyment means to blind oneself more and more to the miseries of material existence. So therefore, those who are seekers of liberation, seekers of transcendence, they are not so interested in this. They just accept whatever that comes, right? If it's there, okay, Shriya is there, Aishwarya is there, Praja is there, but they are detached. So therefore, some measure of detachment is necessary, right? Why? Because if we focus ourselves in more and more, Bhagavad Gita says, right, chapter 2, Bhogeshwarya prashaktanam taya parharta chetasam vyavasayatmika buddhe samadau na vidyate. So, Bhoga and Aishwarya, prashaktanam. If somebody is very much attached to Bhoga, to enjoyment, and Aishwarya, right, which is basically Bhoga is Shriya, Aishwarya and all that, right? Then what happens to them? The Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, the intelligence which is very focused, it doesn't take place. So when we don't have a focused intelligence, focused determination, then we will give up this process of liberation, of transcendence. So therefore, we keep it at a certain level, right? And develop the understanding of transcending. Now, this also was mentioned earlier in Srimad Bhagavatam. If you remember chapter 1, remember the first 3 verses, right? The second verse, it says Srimad Bhagavatam is not for those people who are interested in this Shriya, in this Aishwarya, and in this Praja. It's not for them. So completely rejecting Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, right? Which is called the cheating religion. Because this kind of religions or worship of such devatas, they are simply going to give Shreya, Aishwarya, and Praja in Kama, Dharma, Artha, Moksha. So this is not what we are interested in, right? The transcendental, those who are in the transcendental path, they reject this. So Srimad Bhagavatam is for those. Srimad Bhagavatam is for those who wants to go out of the cycle of birth. So therefore, Dharma Projita Kaitavo, it rejects all religious activities which are materially motivated. And it propounds the highest truth. So this is the Amala Purana, the pure Purana, which is untouched by the 3 modes of nature. Now, what is this absolute truth? So therefore, Bhagavatam continues. This is very, very famous verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam. We should try to remember it. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.28. So it is the defining verse of that absolute truth, is to understand what is the goal of everything. So Sutta Goswami says, Vasudeva Paraveda. Vasudeva Paraveda. So here Paraveda means the ultimate goal of all the Vedic scriptures. Now the Vedic scriptures we have already discussed previously. It covers so many different diverse matters, right? Matters concerning to materialism, economic development, varnashrama, dharma of various different activities and occupation. But ultimately, the goal of all of these is to attain Vasudeva. Who's Vasudeva? Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. So Vasudeva Paraveda, this is the ultimate goal of all scripture, to attain that Supreme Lord Vasudeva, which is the Satyam Param. In fact, Krishna says this also in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, right, in chapter 15, by all the Vedas, I am to be known. Very famous verse. Sarvasya chaham hridishani vishto matta smrtirnyanam apohanam cha vedaischa sarver aham eva vidyo vedanta krit vedavid eva chaham. So vedaischa sarver aham eva vidyo. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. So if someone claims he is a great Vedantist, but if he misses the concept of Vasudev, that means he has missed the goal, right? So that is the understanding behind that. Vasudeva Paramakaha. Maka means sacrifices. So we heard about this also in the beginning parts of the Srimad Bhagavatam chapter 2, how the goal of all sacrifices is ultimately to attain Vasudeva, right? Samsiddhir Haritosanam. Remember that verse? Samsiddhir Haritosanam. The goal of everything, basically all austerities, all sacrifices, the goal of Varnashram is to satisfy Haritoshanam. So Vasudeva Paramaka, the same point is repeated again. Bhagavad Gita also, chapter 9, Krishna says, right? He says, I am the only enjoyer of and master of all sacrifices. Aham hi sarva yajnanam. Aham hi sarva yajnanam. Of all the sacrifices, I am the master. Bhokta cha prabhur eva cha. I am the master and the enjoyer. Bhokta. Bhokta means the enjoyer. So this is the concept. And Vasudeva para yoga. So the goal of mystic yoga or any kind of yoga is not to be able to stretch and do a split. It is ultimately to attain the Supreme Lord. So whatever yogic process, if it doesn't ultimately lead to the Supreme Lord Vasudeva, then it is a waste. In fact, it goes as far as to say that, right? Earlier in this chapter, when we were talking about Varnashram, right? Sutta Goswami says it is completely wasted if one does not lead towards the understanding of Vasudeva. And we also understand who is that greatest of all mystic, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, right? And we also see from Bhagavad Gita chapter 6, Yoginam api sarvesham mat gatinantara atmanaha. Of all the yogis, the one who is closest united to me, he is the greatest of all yogis. And that is the understanding, to ultimately understand everything is Vasudeva. Vasudeva para kriyaha. He is the goal of all fruitive activities. Kriya means fruitive activities or any activity. So if we perform anything, if we are working, if we are having a family, if we are having whatever in our life, ultimately it should be for the pleasure of Krishna, and it should be for attaining Krishna. So we need to use all, it should eventually lead one to this direction. So one's activities and one's work should bring one to this higher level of realization. So it's a journey. So Vasudeva para kriyaha. And then verses 129, it continues. Vasudeva param jnanam. The goal of all knowledge, the ultimate param jnanam. The ultimate knowledge of all knowledge is Vasudeva. To understand this. So this also we can see in Bhagavad Gita chapter 4, right? The Janma Karma Chame Divyam verse. One who understands the nature of my birth, my activities, he does not take birth again. So therefore, this is again mentioned again. So why it's mentioned so many times in so many places? Because still people, they say, oh, why are the Vedas so complex? No, they are not complex. It is obviously there. It's just that people don't want to. They close their eyes. They practice the concept of what we call eyes wide shut. The eyes are wide open, but they are shut. They don't see what is meant to be seen because of motivation. They have different motivation. They are not interested in this. So Vasudevam param tapah. Vasudeva is the goal of all kinds of austerities. Ultimate austerity is to attain Vasudeva. Right? He says that in Bhagavad Gita, isn't it? Yat tapasyasi kaunteya, chapter 9. Right? All austerities, do it for me, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. And then he also mentions the same thing in chapter 17, right? Towards the last 3 verses of chapter 17 Gita, Krishna says, whatever activity, whatever austerity, whatever charity, whatever penance that you do it in my name, right? By uttering the words Om Tat Sat, by giving it ultimately to the Supreme. So therefore, Vasudeva param tapaha. And we have Vasudeva paro dharmo. The goal of all religion, of all occupation, is to attain Vasudeva, right? So this is described very nicely in the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. Remember, Savai pumsam paro dharmo, yato bhaktir adoksaje. We mentioned this also today. So para dharmo, yato bhaktir adoksaje. So this is the goal of all kinds of dharma. So why this is mentioned in so many ways? It is to drive into our mind the important fact that we are born in this world not to become a father or a mother or a successful businessman or a successful accountant or an engineer or a doctor or a millionaire or a person who is well respected or to be a great personality or to be a great anything. This is not why we came here. This is not the purpose of human life. We came here to enjoy due to our illusion. But this human life is very special because in this human life, in this earthly plane, we can actually develop something very special. Number one, we can terminate the cycle of birth and death. And beyond terminating the cycle of birth and death, we can go to our ultimate dharma. What is that ultimate dharma? We will talk about it in this chapter. Vasudeva Paragati. It is to attain Vasudeva. So everything is to attain Vasudeva. And how does one attain Vasudeva? Attaining Vasudeva, does it mean that we just go to where Krishna is staying, right? Or go to Vaikuntha, or go back to Godhead? Does it just simply mean going back? No. Going back is called, is Salokya. Salokya Mukti. But devotees are not interested in Mukti. They are interested in Bhakti. And for one who has Bhakti, Mukti and Siddhi and Bhukti are automatically their servants. That means material, any kind of ability, any kind of mystic power, liberation, all this is automatically serving Bhakti. So this is our ultimate goal. Gati, the goal of life, Vasudeva Paragati, this is the prayojan, right? So this is I would recommend highly that everyone read this purport. Prabhupada writes a very long purport for these two verses. So many things he talks about. I've just summarized them only. Some of them I have not touched. It would be good if you can read that particular purport, especially. So then, Sutta Goswami, after establishing Vasudeva Param Gati, right? Now he goes on to describe further about the nature of this Vasudeva. What a wonderful person this Vasudeva is. Very briefly. So he says, in the beginning of the material creation, Bhagavan Vibhu Vasudeva. So the great Vibhu, the word Vibhu indicates very, very great, or the absolute, or very large. So in the beginning of material creation, Bhagavan Vibhu or Vasudeva, in his transcendental position. So here is evidence to show that the Lord is beyond the three modes. The word is used aguna. That means free of the three modes. And then, why this is mentioned? So in this verse, Sutta Goswami is going to give a preview of the answer to the third question. The third question is, why did Krishna take birth from the womb of Devaki as Vasudeva, as the son of Vasudeva? So that is the third question raised. So here he is going to answer this. So in the beginning, Bhagavan Vibhu Vasudeva, in his transcendental position, right, beyond the three modes, he created the energies of cause and effect. So here it describes about the energies of the Lord. So this is for material creation purpose. He created the energies of cause, which is Sat. Sat means eternal, and effect. Effect is termed as Asat. Asat means not eternal. So we will talk about this a little. I will explain this a little in a while. And he created the energies of cause and effect by his own internal energy, Atma Mayaya. So how to understand this? So Krishna, he is known as Param Ishvara, and he is known as Bhagavan, the source of everything, the source of all power, the source of all opulences, and also he is known as Shaktiman, the possessor of all energies. So he possesses all energies. There are so many different types of energies Krishna possesses. You cannot categorize them. It's unlimited. But still, you can broadly categorize them into two things. But whatever the categorization is, right? We can broadly categorize them into what we call Atma Mayaya. Now, all of Krishna's energies are Atma Mayaya, his internal energy. Krishna is spiritual. His energies are also spiritual. Everything is Atma Mayaya. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says also, Param Prakritim. So from this, it is also known as the Antaranga Shakti, or the spiritual energy. So Atma Mayaya, my internal energy, it is also known as the Antaranga Shakti. This is coming from the Supreme Lord. And this energy is called Sat, or eternal. It is not temporary. And a part of this energy, there are different types of spiritual energy. A part of this, a small fraction of this energy, just imagine like this energy is coming, is like light, right? Now, if this light, a splinter, if the light were to splinter, how does light splinter? For example, if light goes through a prism, right? If a single beam of light goes through a prism, it splinters into different colors, like the rainbow, right? So if we were to take one of those splinters, one of those splinter of this energy, that splintered energy is the Jiva Tattva, the living entities. So we are not the full light itself. Remember, we are not the candle. We are the spark from the candle, or the spark from the fire. So here we are also, another analogy is the Jiva is like the splinter of the energy of the Lord. So we are both Amsa, or expansion of the Lord. At the same time, we are also energy of the Lord. So expansion in the sense that we are a small part, a spark, and energy in the sense we are a splinter of the energy. Okay. So, but there is something different about this Jiva Tattva. Though we are splinter of this energy, the difference here is the Jiva Tattva is given free choice, free will, separate from Krishna's will. Now remember, earlier I mentioned Krishna, we have breaking it into Vishnu Tattva and we have Jiva Tattva, right? So Vishnu Tattva is all working in the same will as the Supreme Lord. Whereas the Jiva Tattva, they are given free will. They can work independently. They can choose to be either serving the Lord, or they can choose not to serve the Lord. So because they are given, so to serve the Lord is to associate with the spiritual energy of the Lord. To not serve the Lord is to associate away from the spiritual energy of the Lord. So therefore, the Jiva has a choice, but he's also entity, and he's also Sat, eternal. Okay. Okay, now we try to understand the other part. Now, this Antaranga Shakti, which is the Atma Mayaya, coming from the internal energy of the Lord, it casts a shadow. Just like, we have something, it casts a shadow, right? Now, is the shadow real? The shadow is real, but it is insubstantial. It doesn't have substance. So it is illusion, but it is real. It is there. You can't say it's not there, but it is not really the substance, right? It's a shadow of a substance. So the Antaranga Shakti, it casts a shadow. And this shadow, there is an energy in the shadow also. And this shadow energy is called the Bahiranga Shakti, or the external energy. So this external energy, or the Bahiranga Shakti, it is nothing but a reflection of the spiritual energy. So in one sense, it is non-different. It is part of it. Can a shadow be separated from its object? It cannot, right? So therefore, ultimately, the Bahiranga Shakti is also Atma Mayaya. So that's why here, Sutta Goswami is saying, in the beginning, for the purpose of material creation, the spiritual energy indirectly transforms and forms this material universe. So what is this Bahiranga Shakti about? This Bahiranga Shakti, known as Prakriti, right? It creates this material universe. And this energy, this material universe is called Asat, right? So this is how we can understand the difference between eternal energies of the Lord and the temporary energy of the Lord. Now the Lord, he does not associate with this material energy. He only associates with the spiritual energy in the spiritual world. For the purpose of material creation, for the jivas who don't want to associate with the Lord, because they don't want to associate with the spiritual energy of the Lord, therefore they can come to the material energy of the Lord and take birth here in this material universe. So knowledge of all of these is called Brahman. So what is Brahman? The jiva is Brahman. The spiritual energy is Brahman. The material energy also is Brahman, though it is Asat, because it is coming from the shadow of the spiritual energy. So material creation, Prakriti, is also part of that Brahman. And we also have the Supreme Lord, who is the Parabrahman. So all of these is Brahman. And in Sanskrit, Brahman can mean any of these. And it depends on the context of the verse which is being used, right? From there, we can understand which Brahman they're talking about. So therefore, this particular this description is already given here. Okay. So now Sutta Goswami continues. After creating the material substance with this Atma Mayaya, with this internal energy of the Lord, which is transformed, the shadow of the internal energy, which is the Prakriti, right? The shadow of the internal energy, which is the Prakriti, it creates the material substance. How it creates, right? We will discuss in detail in another chapter. So in short, right, the transformation from Pradhan to Prakriti to Mahatattva. So don't worry about this. But basically, the material substance which are created, this is all known as Mahatattva. Now, Mahatattva comprises of 24 elements. The first 5 elements are known as the Panchabhutas: earth, water, air, fire, ether. So all these 5 elements, they combine in various combinations and permutations, and they create the gross body. Now, the purpose of all this is because the jivas, they come to this material world because they want to enjoy. And what do they enjoy? They want to enjoy form, sound, smell, taste, touch, right? We enjoy nice tasty food. We enjoy touching nice soft things. We enjoy smelling fragrance. We enjoy hearing sounds, music, and all that. Our eyes enjoy to see certain forms. So therefore, we want to enjoy. And to enjoy these sense objects, these are the 5 sense objects. These are also the elements which are created by the Lord. So the Lord creates the gross material substance, earth, water, fire, air, ether. And from this, it creates the 5 sense objects known as the Pancha Tanmatras, 5 sense objects for the jivas to enjoy. Now, the jiva is spirit. This Tanmatras is matter. How can spirit enjoy matter? So therefore, from these 5 Panchabhutas, the Lord creates, from this permutation, he creates the Pancha Jnana Indriyas, the 5 knowledge acquiring senses. You know, in order to enjoy form, we develop eyes. In order to enjoy sound, we develop ears, and likewise. Okay. But just having the senses alone is not satisfying, because, you know, it's like a paralyzed person, right? He can see, he can hear, he can smell, he can touch, but he can't do anything about it. So to satisfy whatever lusts that he has, to satisfy his enjoyment, therefore, the Lord creates the 5 karmendriyas. So these are all elements. So we have the Panchabhuta, 5, plus the 5 Tanmatras, 5, so becomes 10. And then the 5 Jnanindriyas, another 5, so becomes 15. And then the 5 Karmendriyas becomes 20, right? What is Karmendriya? Ability of speech, the hands, the arms, the legs, the anus, and the genitals. These all form the Karmendriyas. With these Karmendriyas, together with the Jnanindriya and the Karmendriya, and with a body made out of these 5 elements, these are called the gross elements, right? We get a human body. This is, or any kind of body, right? But this alone is not enough. So, because the soul cannot mix with this body directly, it needs another subtle body, because this is gross. So therefore, to create subtle body, the Lord creates 3 more elements. So we already got 20. So 21, 22, 23. So we get mind, intelligence, and ego. Manas, buddhi, and to tie it all together is the ego. The mind is where the desires are kept and where the enjoyment takes place. Without the mind, right, material mind, we cannot enjoy and feel the different sensations. So the mind is a subtle element which is created for that purpose. And to guide the mind, intelligence is given, buddhi. And all of these are subtle elements, but they are material. So to tie the soul, which is spirit, right, the false ego, ahamkara, is also manifested. So together with this, the human or the jiva, he becomes embodied. So he becomes embodied, covered by the 3 modes of nature. In this way, he tries to enjoy the sense objects. So this is what happens. So therefore, Sutta Goswami says, after creating the material substance, the Lord Vasudeva, he expands himself and enters into it. Now, in this topic, we will not talk about the detail of how he does this. We will discuss this in the next session, in chapter 3. So here he is simply creating a preview. So the Lord, what he does, he creates the material substance. He causes the universe to be created, not only one universe, multiple universes to be created. How this happens, we will talk about it in chapter 3, right? So this Supreme Lord, who lies in this ocean of causes and causes many universes to be created, he is known as Karano Dakashayi Vishnu. Karano Dakashayi. Karana comes from the word Karana, causes. And he is also known as Mahavishnu, very large. And from his paws comes many, 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 many universes. And what happens? The Lord expands himself further and enters into each of these universes. So you can see, right? You can see here, he enters into one of these universes. Each bubble here is a universe. And in this one universe, he enters into that universe. And when he enters into one universe, he becomes known as Garbho Dakashayi Vishnu. And from this Garbho Dakashayi Vishnu, a lotus stem comes from his navel, and Brahma, the engineer, the master engineer of the universe, is created. And he is the embodiment of the mode of passion. And therefore, by knowledge given by Lord Vishnu to him, he is able to create the entire planetary systems and all the living entities' bodies in this material universe, in one universe. So therefore, we have a Brahma in every universe. So, and although he is within the material modes of nature and appears to be Adbati, one of the created beings. So what happens? The Lord enters the universe. Now the universe is made of matter, material things, Prakriti. How is it the Supreme Lord, who is Aguna, beyond the 3 modes, able to enter into this material universe, which is made out of the 3 modes? So here this is explained. Although he is within the material modes of nature and appears to be Abhati, that means he looks like as if he's one of the created beings. He looks like as if he's one of them, one of the rest of us. But he is not. He is always fully enlightened in his transcendental position. Vijnanena vijrumbitaha. He is always transcendental in his knowledge, and he's beyond the 3 modes by his special potency. So we have to understand this. The Lord is not covered by the 3 modes of nature. So therefore, when people say, oh, Krishna, why does he do this? Why does he steal the gopis' clothes? Why does he steal butter? Why is he having rasa dance with so many people? So if one understands this very well, then we will understand that Krishna is beyond the three modes and Dharma serves the Supreme Lord. So then the next verse, the Lord as Vishva Atma. Now, from this Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, the Lord further expands one more time and enters into every, what he does, he expands one more time, and this one more time expansion is called Shirodakashayi Vishnu. And here he is known as Vishva Atma, the soul of the universe or the soul of everything. So the Lord as Vishva Atma pervades all things just as fire permeates and illuminates wood. So what happens? Just like how we have material bodies, everything has material body, right? And the jiva who goes into, like all of us, we have bodies, right? So what is the symptom that we are alive? The symptom that we are alive is that we have consciousness, isn't it? We are conscious, we are able to think, feel, and all that. So that is our symptom. So the symptom, the consciousness lights up the dead body. When the consciousness goes away, then it becomes a dead body, right? So it's only due to the consciousness present in the dead body that one is known as a life body, a life person, right? So in the same way, the jiva of the entire universe, we understand that the Supreme Lord enters into everything. He pervades everything, all things, just like fire permeates and illuminates the wood. So just like how the consciousness is lighting up the body, the Supreme Lord, he enters into everything and illuminates that. So it gives beauty. The Lord gives beauty. The Lord. So therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, right, Krishna says in chapter 10, we talk about the vibhutis, how everything which, whatever that's beautiful, whatever that's great, whatever that's strong, whatever that's powerful, whatever that's glorious in any of the material creations that we see, if somebody is so beautiful or somebody is so wonderful, then it is all but a spark of that Supreme Lord due to his presence. So this is the understanding. So if somebody has all kinds of powers, that is coming due to the presence of the Lord. So Prabhupada says, the spiritual master can kindle the spiritual fire from the wood-like living entity by imparting proper spiritual messages injected through the receptive ear. So Prabhupada takes advantage of this example of this wood, fire in wood. And then he says, in the same way, without the spiritual master, we are all dead wood because we do not know what is the goal of life. So in the same way, the spiritual master, he kindles the fire within the wood, and little by little we catch fire and become just like fire. So we are also able to attain, though we are starting off as wood, in the end we end up like fire by the mercy of the spiritual master. And so he appears to be of many varieties. So this Vishva Atma, or this Shirodakashayi Vishnu, later we will hear this word Shirodakashayi Vishnu in chapter 3. So he appears to be of many varieties, though he is the absolute one without a second, or Puman. The word Puman here refers to the absolute person, one without a second. So this is his position. So as Paramatma, he expands into everything, every living entity. Remember, in our heart, right? The Atma is in our heart. We are as Atma sitting in our heart, but we are not the only Atma. The Supreme Lord, Paramatma, is also there. So this is the Paramatma. So how to understand Paramatma? He appears to be many, but he is absolute one. How to understand this? He is one, but he appears to be many. So an example to help us understand is these disco lights. You know, probably we would have seen this or heard about this disco light. When this disco ball is rotating, it throws light into various places. It looks like as if there's light sources everywhere, but actually there is only one light source. You just shine the torchlight or the light on this disco ball, and this disco ball will splinter the light into various places like this. So it's basically an expansion. So it's all localized in this Paramatma, Vishwa Atma, but it looks like as if it's everywhere. So, but at the same time, he is everywhere. So that is the understanding. Just like this light, the lights appear to be everywhere, but they are all originating from one single light, which is the Vishwa Atma, or the Shirodakashayi Vishnu. So Prabhupada explains Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by one of his plenary parts, just one of his plenary parts, which is the Shirodakashayi Vishnu, he expands himself all over the material world, in every nook and corner. What do you mean by every nook and corner? So this is what Prabhupada explains. His existence can be perceived even within the atomic energy. So not only he expands into living entities, he also expands into non-living entities, even into matter, and lights up the matter just like fire lights up the wood. Matter, antimatter, proton, neutron, etc. are all different effects of the Paramatma feature of the Lord. So he is in living entities, he is in also in matter. That's why, Hiranyakashipu will ask Prahlad, where is your Supreme Lord? Is he in this wall? Is he in this pillar? So Prahlad will say yes, because he remembered this verse. So therefore he's every, and not only he's inside the atom, it is described elsewhere that he is also in the space between the atom. When there are two atoms, he's inside the atom, but when the space between two atoms also is in there. So he's everywhere. He is expanded everywhere. So one cannot run away from the Paramatma. He is watching everything and he's controlling everything. So here's a statement by Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb. After he witnessed the first bomb in in Hiroshima, he quoted the Bhagavad Gita verse. Of all the things to quote in the world, he quoted after seeing, nobody would have seen such an explosion. Nobody would have seen such this is the first time nuclear explosion they saw. And the first thing that he thought of was the Bhagavad Gita verse. Now I am become death, the destroyer of the worlds. This is chapter 11, Vishwarupa, right? Krishna says, I am time, come to destroy the entire world. So very interesting. And this is the father of nuclear physics, talking about atomic energy. So that's why I put this picture here. So the super soul, this super soul, Paramatma, he enters, particularly the word used is nirvistaha, which means enters. So he actually enters into the bodies of the created beings who are guna maye. Guna maye means influenced by the three modes of material energy. He enters into all the bodies. So that's why, we don't kill, not only because we don't want to cause harm, because we respect the presence of the Paramatma. And the Vaishnava also offers obeisances even to the ant. What to speak of great devatas? Because all of them carry the Paramatma in their heart. So this is the understanding. When we become humbler than a blade of grass, we have to remember this point, that the Supreme Lord, we see the Supreme Lord. We need to learn to see the divinity in everyone. And then we can become truly humble by the grace of the Lord. So therefore, the super soul enters into the bodies of created beings who are guna maye and causes them to enjoy the effects of these modes by the subtle mind. Because the jivas want to enjoy. We came to this material world. We want to be separate from Krishna, right? But we can't be separate. So Krishna elaborately creates all this setup so that we can enjoy. What kind of setup? He creates, just now I mentioned, he creates the Panchabhutas, the Tanmatras, the Jnanendriyas, the Karmendriyas, the Sukshma Sarira, the subtle body, mind, intelligence, and all that. So that all this is like our equipment to facilitate the soul to enjoy matter. Because soul is spirit, cannot enjoy matter. just because he needs to, the jiva wants to enjoy matter because he cannot satisfy his desires to be separate from Krishna in the spiritual world, because everything there is spirit. So therefore he has to come to material world, and he wants to enjoy matter, but he is spirit. So therefore Krishna creates this elaborate arrangement so that the spirit, trapped inside by the false ego, his own doing, false ego is due to his own doing, right? Therefore the subtle elements of mind and intelligence are created, trapped within the material body, and then in this way he enjoys, because he is within the material nature, he is subjected to the three modes of nature. He goes through various species of life trying to enjoy. So Prabhupada says, the Lord as Paramatma helps the living being to get material happiness, because the living being is helpless in all respects in obtaining what he desires. So that's the true thing. This is why Krishna as Paramatma is our real friend. Real friend means he helps us, right? What friends do? They help us. So we are actually helpless. We want to digest the food also. Can we say, okay, now I will command my body to digest this? Does it work that way? we are at the mercy of the situation, isn't it? We want to eat all kinds of things. One day we digest, another time we may not digest. So then that's the thing. So according to our karma, the Lord satisfies our desires, but everything can be can go through the way we want. But because we have karma, so therefore it is adjusted. Our satisfaction is adjusted. Do we deserve to get this enjoyment? Do we deserve to get it? So accordingly, it is adjusted. And the Paramatma helps us to satisfy this. But the Paramatma is also waiting. The moment we say, okay, enough of material enjoyment, I want to go back to you, the Paramatma is waiting and ready to give all benefits. So this verse is very nice verse. It is the last verse. So let us recite this. Bhavayati esha satvena lokan vailoka bhavanaha Leelavatara nurato devatiryannaradishu. Thus, Loka Bhavana maintains all planets inhabited by Deva, Tiryan, Naradishu. So why this verse is very important? Because this verse answers question number 3. But before we talk about the question, there are several points here. The first point here is the Supreme Lord is Loka Bhavana, the well-wisher, the maintainer, the protector of this entire creation, for the benefit of the jivas who wanted to go away from him and enjoy separately from him. Yet the Supreme Lord comes. You can see all the elaborate arrangement he has created, right? How he had taken into different expansions, created the material universes, simply to facilitate the desire of the jiva. So therefore he is Loka Bhavana. He maintains, comes from the word bhavati, bhavayati, right? He maintains all planets inhabited by who? Inhabited by the devas, who are also jivas. Remember, jiva can mean deva, it can mean tiryan or tiryak, the lower creatures, animals, insects, plants, right? So the higher planet, the higher beings, the lower beings, and also human beings. Naradishu. Nara means human. So he is the protector and the maintainer of all of them. And assuming the roles of Leela Avataras, he performs Leelas to reclaim. So this is the answer. So what does he do here? Purusha Avatar. So just now when we talked about this kind of expansions of the Lord is called Purusha Avatar. Now, question number 4 was, what are the Purusha avatars? How does the Lord expand and create this material universe and maintain? That was the 4th question. Here, briefly, it was answered how it was done so. And the 5th question was, how does the Lord take his various leelas, performs his various leelas? So they wanted to know about his leela avatar. So therefore, here the answer, also a preview to that answer is given. Assuming the roles of the leela avataras, he performs leela. Leela means sweet pastimes or wonderful, amazing pastimes. He performs these pastimes. Why? Because he wants to give everybody, all living creatures, a glimpse of the spiritual world, to remind the forgetful jiva of what they are missing back home in the spiritual world. So it's like a preview. By doing this, what does he hope to do? He performs these leelas to reclaim those in the mode of pure goodness. How will he reclaim them? He wants to awaken the attraction for the jivas for his lotus feet. So by performing these leelas, we fall in love with the Supreme Lord. So that is the answer to question number 3. Why did Krishna become Devaki Putra? Why did Krishna come as Devaki Putra? Why did he come as Vasudeva, the son of Vasudev? Because here Krishna came as the original Swayam Bhagavan, personality of Godhead, to give a preview of his spiritual abode. So that he performed, he did various leelas, right? He did so many beautiful pastimes, and in this way, so many devotees became attracted to him. So many people attained the spiritual world. So therefore, he performs various, not only in his original form he came, he also comes in various other leelas. And in this way, he attracts the jivas back to him. So Prabhupada says he manifests his transcendental pastimes amongst them just to create the desire to go back to Godhead. So that is the purpose. That's why we need to hear Krishna Katha. We don't have desire to go back to Godhead, then hear about Krishna. Hear about his pastimes, hear about his nature, his qualities. Prabhupada says, the happiness which the living beings are hankering for is not to be found within any corner of the innumerable universes and material planets. We are all looking for happiness, right? People say all kinds of things. I'm looking for peace. Why are we looking for peace? So that we can peacefully enjoy. And what is this enjoy? So that enjoyment is happiness, right? We are all looking for happiness. But ultimately, we cannot find that permanent, perfect happiness anywhere in this material universe. Our Brahma Loka, from the highest planet of Brahma to the lowest hellish planets, there is birth, old age, disease, and death. And there are all kinds of tribulations. So these are the planetary systems, 14 planetary systems. Bhu, Bhuvar, and Swarga, the three stages of these planetary systems. From all of this within this universe, the topmost planet is Brahmaloka. There also, there is no perfect happiness, because even Lord Brahma has to die one day. So the forgetful living beings under the influence of the material modes have no information of the kingdom of God, because we are forgetful. Did we know about Krishna's pastimes? Did we know about the spiritual world? Did we know what Krishna does for us? We don't know until the Guru gave us this information, until Srila Prabhupada took the trouble to translate Srimad Bhagavatam in English and went to the Western country to publish this Srimad Bhagavatam and establish this and to give all of us this information. So, and therefore, by their grace, by the grace of the spiritual masters, by the grace of Srila Vyasadeva, by the grace of all those acharyas, we are able to remember the Supreme Lord. So Prabhupada continues, we are almost done. Just give me another 2 minutes. The eternal happiness which the living being wants is obtainable in the kingdom of God. Just like we are looking for water, we are in the mirage, we are in the desert, we are looking for water, water, water. We see a mirage and we think there is water there. We think there is happiness there. But here the Supreme Lord sends his representative, right? So that they can show us where real happiness is. where perfect happiness is. And this is Krishna's master plan. He wants to reclaim all of us. So by following this, by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, by following the instructions given in the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita, by chanting the Lord's names, the Yuga Dharma for this Kali Yuga, by remembering the Supreme Lord constantly, when we die, we can eventually attain the Supreme Lord. And the Lord wants that very much. So this reconfirms the answer. So Prabhupada says, the Lord therefore comes to propagate the message of the kingdom of God, either personally as an incarnation or through his bona fide representative as the good Son of God. Or in other words, the Son of God means it's like the representative of Krishna, the spiritual masters. So this is the main reason. If Krishna wanted to kill a demon, he doesn't have to come down himself. There are so many things he can do. He can empower different jivas to kill them, like he has done before. He can simply, from the heart, in the Paramatma form, he can just choose to end everything. So, but that's not the real reason. The real reason is because he wants to attract the devotees back to him. And who are those who he attracts? He attracts those who are particularly in the mode of goodness. So who are following the path. So in this way, we can go back to our original father, our spiritual father, and have our different types of relationships with him in developing our, in serving him eternally. So with that, we end today's session. Let us chant the holy names of the Lord. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gatadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we've completed chapter 2, Srimad Bhagavatam. Next session, we will do chapter 3. We will do after 2 weeks. So give us time to also read and prepare, for me to also prepare nicely. If there are any questions, we can look at the questions. If you have a question, just unmute and you can speak. Meanwhile, I'll look at the chat.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Prabhu, just want to confirm one thing. When I start reading Bhagavad Gita, I'm a bit confused between the, whenever, just now you explained also, like Krishna, from Krishna got Vishnu Tattva, and after that you get Jiva Tattva. So interchangeably, I keep on hearing sometime Narayana, sometime Krishna. So if we are referring to Supreme Personality of Godhead, is Supreme Godhead is Krishna and Narayana the same, or Narayana is the plenary expansion of Krishna, or Krishna is the plenary expansion of Narayana? I'm a bit confused on that part. Like even Bhagavad Gita, some places they mention Narayana is Supreme Godhead. Some other places mention Krishna as Supreme Godhead. So is both are referring to the same, or like Vishnu, I know it's an expansion of Lord Krishna, right? How about Narayana and Krishna itself? Thanks, Prabhu.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you for that question. When we say Vishnu Tattva is also Godhead. He is also the Supreme Person. Krishna is the origin of Vishnu Tattva. So he is also the Supreme Person. So look at it this way. Krishna is the original personality. From him comes his expansions for various purposes. And there are different classes of expansion. The classes of expansion called Vishnu Tattva are as good as Krishna. Just like one candle lights up another candle, the second candle burns as bright as the first candle, but still the first candle is the original candle. Without the first candle, the second candle wouldn't have been there, right? So in this way, Vishnu Tattvas are all equal to the Supreme Lord in principle, but still there is certain speciality in the Supreme Lord, certain extra specialities. But it's not wrong to say that Vishnu is also the Supreme Lord. though there is some slight difference, but they are essentially the same people. For example, and when you say Narayana, Narayana also is Lord Vishnu. So when Lord Vishnu lies down in the ocean, then he is known as Narayana, because the word Narayana means the one who lies down, the human-like form which lies down on water. So that is Narayana. So it's just a description of Lord Vishnu. So Narayana means Vishnu, right? And there are different types of Vishnu: Mahavishnu, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, Shirodakashaya Vishnu. We will hear about this in more detail in chapter 3. The full answer to your question we will give you nicely in chapter 3. But in a short answer, Vishnu is equal to God. Krishna is also God. Krishna is the origin of Vishnu. Vishnu means Narayana. So we can interchangeably use this, because Lord Vishnu is also Narayana. And sometimes instead of saying Krishna, we can also say Vishnu, especially when we talk about creation, because Krishna doesn't directly create. It is his expansions as Vishnu who creates. But without Krishna, none of this creation would happen. So ultimately, Krishna creates also. So we can say Krishna created the material world, but we can also say Vishnu created the material world. Both are correct.
Okay, thanks, Prabhu. Well explained, Prabhu. Thank you.
All right. Hare Krishna. One way of explaining it in a very simple way is to say that Lord Vishnu, when okay, like for example, when we are at home, we are very different, right? We have our relationship with our children, with our family. We are very personal. They see the nice side of us. But when we go to work, we take off, we wear a certain uniform, a certain coat. We become our personality is slightly different. We become a bit more formal. So in the same way, Krishna, in God, in his home in Vrindavan, is like Krishna, where his full personality is full blown, his full sweetness is manifested. And you could say, technically, when he goes to work, he becomes like Vishnu. So it's not very accurate, but it helps us to visualize a bit better the difference. They are basically the same persons. It's just that they are expanding. And the speciality of this kind of expansion is each expansion has its own consciousness. So they all act in their own way, but they all act in the will of the Lord. Okay, so let's quickly go through it's now 9:35 already. I'll just go through the questions. Anyone wants to leave, they can. Thank you so much for coming, but I'll just go through the questions quickly. Right, is it wrong to perform Pitru Puja? It's not wrong. It's pious activity. It's not a spiritual activity. So we are trying to follow the spiritual path. So one who follows the spiritual path need not perform these things. So the idea is one who follows a higher dharma can let go a lower dharma. So therefore, when one performs bhakti or takes the path of yoga, all these other pious activities, punya karma, and all these other things are no longer necessary. Simply by performing bhakti, all these things is automatically satisfied by the grace of the Lord. Even though our bhakti may not be perfect, still the power of bhakti is so great that even a shadow of that bhakti which we perform, provided that we do it constantly, right? That's the key. With the idea of trying to please Krishna or Guru, right? That will satisfy everything. So therefore, transcendentalists, they don't follow this. They don't perform Pitru Puja. It's not necessary. But still, because they don't want to, sometimes social convention may be there. So it's not that we stay away, oh, I'll run away from this. No, it's not like that. If it happens to come our way, we do it. And when we do it, we dedicate everything to Lord Vishnu. We do it in the Vaishnava style, but otherwise it's not necessary. Simply by chanting so many wonderful, simply by performing the bhakti processes, everything is already automatically satisfied. Okay, so then one question by Ganga Devi Mataji. Asat is opposite to Sat? Yes. Asat means anything that says like karma. When you say karma is opposite of karma. So karma binds us, karma liberates us. So Sat is eternal, Asat is temporary, not eternal, or opposite, right? Okay, then why are Jiva Tattva given free will? Jiva Tattva is given. Would you want your free will to be taken? We want to have free will, right? Nobody likes to be forced, isn't it? Do we like to be forced? If it's forced, it is not real love. Krishna wants to have relationship. Imagine you are a rich person and you are a powerful person, and then people want to be friends with you, and you find out that they want to be friends with you only because you're rich. So this is not really what you want. We want to have a relationship. Krishna wants to have relationship, genuine relationship with the jivas. So therefore he gives us free will, and it is also our right. So if we don't give free will, then people will accuse Krishna of being a despot, of being you are a conqueror, you force people. So therefore we have given a choice. But Krishna knows that it's just temporary. We are in this material world just for a temporary situation. Krishna has his master plan. We simply, if we have come in touch with bhakti, very easy, very quickly we can go back to Godhead by following the process. Okay, I think that's all the questions here. Okay, there's one more question. Roja Mataji, why are there so many residing deities in temples? So that's the thing. If you can refer to the my presentation on the Hinduism today, why the confusion? So that's that you can understand from there. Vaishnavism is just worshipping the Supreme Lord. That's it. We do not worship other deities. So all these other things came about. Why there are so many deities? Because, okay, just now we talked about it in the verse, right? Because they are interested in Shriya, they are interested in Praja, they are interested in Aishwarya. So, and they want it quickly. It doesn't matter whether it's good for them or bad for them. So therefore they take this shortcut by performing Deva worship. It's not necessary because ultimately it comes from the Supreme Lord anyway. So simply by worshipping Vishnu, we can get all these things, but the Lord tends to only give what's good for us, which is different from the Devas. The Devas will give even if it's bad for us, as long as we ask for it. Whereas the Supreme Lord, he only gives us if it's good for us, and if it brings us back to him. Okay, Mataji. So for a more complete answer, you can refer to the presentation on Hinduism today. That will explain why there are so many confusion. Okay, so thank you so much for spending your time with us. Yeah. Is there another question? Okay. If there are no further questions, then we can end here today. So thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Sri Krishna Bhagavan ki jai. So we will see you all again in another 2 weeks' time. Any questions in the meantime, please put in the chat.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhu. Hare
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.